And welcome to another episode of our favorite show here. Jeff plays too many songs at once. Cloud Talk Live. What is even going out live? I don't even know. Daniel made me practice this, and here we are. All right, everybody, welcome to the program, Super Source Auto. There we are. It's just a whole lot of buttons to push all at once, everyone. Welcome to the program. My name is Jeff DeVerter. I am the Chief Technology Evangelist here at Rackspace Technology, and I'm so glad that you are here. Last week was a crazy week. We were off, of course, at reInvent, but we're back for another episode of Cloud Talk Live. All right, everyone, welcome back. I am back in Texas, pretty excited to be back in Texas, and here we are. So today's episode, really a fascinating one. It is one of the first times that we will be introducing some of our new content that we have been working really hard on. As you know, every quarter we go out and we do we go out and we do a bunch of research, and then we bring that research to you. Now, we've got a big summit coming up the beginning of, up in January, beginning of 2024. Can't believe we're saying 2024, but hey, heck yeah, we are. So let me push a button right here. Oh, we've got conflicting overlays, but that's all right. Folks, I want to encourage you to, if you want to reach out to us, you can do that by reaching out to us at solve@rackspace.com on your emails. You can also find me over on LinkedIn as well. So if you just go look for my first initial last name, J DeVerter, there I'll be. So you saw the note before. Introduce yourselves. I'd love to know who you are and where you are. Todd Catlett in the room. Todd, glad to see you here today. Bring all of your partner friends. So, all right, so let's move this little light over there. Very good. All right, so it was really a pretty crazy week last week out at AWS reInvent. We were live a few times, had some incredible interviews with some great folks, and all of that content is going to be coming to you over the next few, well, really probably 6 weeks. You're going to see it in the podcast. You're going to see it over on LinkedIn. You're going to see it on YouTube. It's going to be all over the place, but you're only going to be able to be notified about those showing up in the podcast if you subscribe to the podcast Cloud Talk. That's where the bulk of the content will show up. So incredible interviews. We had the worldwide leader for partnerships at AWS. We had go-to-market leader for North America, and that was pretty awesome conversation as well. Conversation with one of our great partner friends over at App Dynamics and several other things. So you're going to want to make sure to follow us there. So please do that. Now, for our conversation today, as you know, this is the first Tuesday of a month. And you've been around here long enough, folks, to know what that means. What that means is it is Women in Tech Tuesday. And so for our conversation of everything that we're going to do, I brought on some incredible women to begin the conversation over here. And the first, of course, is Adriana Bustamante. Now, she leads so many things here. I started writing titles in. She is cursed. I'm going to tell you, Adriana is cursed. She's cursed with success at Rackspace. And that is when you do a great job in one thing, you get to do more things. She will tell us more specifically about her role here shortly. But joining her also, and not from San Antonio, as would be normal, but from the airport in Houston, is Hannah Deuce, who leads alliances for us here, especially in our with our Dell and VMware friends. And that really is going to get into a lot of our conversation here today. So with that, Daniel, why don't we bring up the ladies? Adriana, Hannah, welcome to the program. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thanks for having us this morning.
You bet. Hannah, how's the weather in Houston?
It's about the same as San Antonio. Nice and sunny coming in right here.
Well, thank you so much both for being on the program. We've got folks from Charlotte. Jim is here from Charlotte. Gert, our good friend Gert from, you remember Gert, he's now up in Dallas. We've got Pakistan is here. Mohammed from Pakistan, welcome. We also have, sorry, I have a lot of arms in the way. Bernardo from Mexico, San Antonio, India. It's a global event, and we're excited to have everyone here part of the conversation, because we're going to unpack some really interesting information. But before we do that, Adriana, let's start with you. I put a lot of titles under your little baseball card. What is it you do for us here at Rackspace specifically?
Yeah. No, thank you, Jeff. And yes, because I actually started Rackspace 17 plus years ago doing the online chat and entry level sales program. And today I have the privilege of looking after our global partnerships and alliances. And that includes our channel business as well, and our channel partner community and global demand generation to support our private cloud growth.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Hannah, tell us what you do for us here at Rackspace.
Yeah. So I have the privilege of being on Adriana's team, and I lead our strategic alliances. So think of Dell, VMware, as you mentioned, Datadog. There's a handful of others as well that fall into that group, Palo Alto. So tech alliances, if you will.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to talk a lot about the research that we did here. But first, I want to have a little conversation around the role, of course, and benefit of having women in tech. Now, I did a little research this morning and found that about 59% or so of women are part of the global workforce, which, of course, is great. But when we look at that number in the context of IT, that number drops to 26%. And that number even gets smaller when we look at women as part of leadership inside of IT organizations. So let's talk about that for a minute. You guys live this every single day. What do you think are some of the barriers that are keeping women from being a part of IT organizations? Adriana, why don't you kick us off?
Sure. I think that women wear multiple hats in the household, and especially if there's children in the family, that adds a different level of element. So, I earlier as we were getting on for this, we were joking about Hannah. This is the day in the life of a woman in tech. She's dropped off her daughter at school this morning, made sure she had all of the stuff, made sure she was packed appropriately, and here she is at the airport having this fantastic conversation and representing what women in leadership can be from a technology perspective. Look, I think that it is a unique opportunity to get to do this, but it's also a challenge to make sure that you're juggling all of the pieces. I am from a different perspective. James and I do not have children, but there's still the different levels of challenges that everybody goes through in your life. So every woman's path is different, but I always think about, there's lots of different things on the plate that most people are not aware about.
Yeah. And we saw the research that I was looking at also showed that, and we know this, that during COVID, the workforce shrank globally by about 2%. But that number rose to about 5.5% when you look at it through the lens of women participating. Hannah, as Adriana just called out, the challenges that women like yourself face on a day-to-day basis are huge. How is it that you help deal with that and balance, progressing and being engaged in a family, but also accomplishing all the things you do professionally?
Yeah, so I have an interesting, maybe a split perspective. I didn't have children until recently, so that is a new change for me. And my husband and I adopted a little girl. And so it has been full on jump into the role of mom as well, of a 5-year-old. And so while incredible, it has been a true time to really evaluate what are your priorities. My priorities shifted quickly and started to need to juggle in a different way. I will say one of the things that I have loved is working on Adriana's team and the support that she's given. Working for a great leader cannot be, and I'm not just kissing up here, but it can't be understated, I don't think, in the ability to balance and work at a place that allows for that. And then also finding the time in your day. It's really been a shift in how I view my day. And needing to end a little bit earlier than I used to. I used to just kind of keep working and need to end a little earlier, but then come back online, but allow yourself the space to have that flexibility. I hope that helps a little.
Yeah, that's great. Now, one last question for you, Adriana, before we move on. And knowing your story, you did not start in a glorious position. In fact, what was your very first position at Rackspace?
So when you go to rackspace.com and of course we evolve with the adoption of artificial intelligence and new technologies, but decades ago now at this point, you go to rackspace.com and there is still a window that pops up. And that was my first interaction. I came from public relations, specifically in entertainment. I was out in LA. So when I moved back to San Antonio, and started at Rackspace. I did not have a background in technology, but I understood customer service, the value of that. And it's very much a part of Rackspace's DNA. And I said, I can do that. I pitch. And so it was actually one of the best learnings to understand what people were thinking about and asking questions about. So I was in active listening mode, like navigating and learning more from the technology perspective. And I've always stayed curious and continue to learn.
Right, and now you've risen to a pretty high level inside of the organization. What was the role of other women in the organization through the years in helping you, transition and grow up, and even men? Actually, I should make it more open ended. How would you credit other individuals in the organization
No,
in your
it
career?
is a great call out, and I have been fortunate to have women help lay a path and create a space for me, along with male advocates that have supported, the what I was trying to accomplish and communicate. I think that it's really important to think about the vision and what it is that you want for yourself and your career, what finding out what really drives your interest. But as with technology, everything is changing constantly. And so if you allow yourself to be nimble and to be open to new opportunities, but staying true to who you are and really understanding where your performance skills and your passions overlap in that peak performance, um, then really some exciting, incredible things can happen. And Rackspace, as it's continued to evolve, has really enabled those opportunities. And it's one of my passions to help make sure that I can help create that space for others.
I love that. All right. I would love to continue this part of the conversation the whole time, but we do have another topic I want to jump to. But I think what I also want to do is commit that in 2024, we're going to have a Cloud Talk Live Women in Tech Summit, and we're going to let you guys really unpack this a lot deeper and hopefully enable that next couple of generations coming up behind you.
Love that.
But we do have this research that we went out and did. As you folks know, every quarter we go out and we have a general topic that we're going to unpack with over how many people we go talk to? 1,000 and something that we go out and talk to across 10 different countries, 10 different countries, bunch of different verticals, and it unpacks a lot of information. And so we're going to just grab a few of these from this year's research, or this quarter's research, that really looks at trends that we're expecting in 2024. And it starts with this. Daniel, let's take me wide for a second. Hybrid approach. Does your organization have a hybrid approach? And look at this, as they're looking at their 2024 and beyond, 75% have a hybrid approach for how they're going to deal with IT going forward. Adriana, what does this tell you?
Yeah. So this is no shocker. We've continued to see this in surveys of more enterprises and now going lower into mid-market and SMB companies having more than one cloud. What we have continued to find, though, is that not everybody's strategy was intentional or by design. Sometimes it's often started by other groups within the organization that just decide on another cloud. It's like, oh, before you know it, we have a hybrid cloud strategy. Didn't know we got here. And so I think, now there is more opportunity and thought around this. And okay, how do we maximize and scale for the long term? How do we make sure that we're laying down that right foundation? And I think it's not a shocker to see those stats continue to rise. And because we're also having those same conversations with different prospects today, and the partners that we work with and their clients are bringing the same challenges of help me be more thoughtful and more strategic in how we future proof our strategy to embrace leveraging a multi-cloud hybrid cloud approach.
Yeah, and we just talked about the fact that all the things that changed, especially for the workforce during COVID. And I think if we were to look at what changed for technology during that time, is that everybody made a rash, quick decision to get data in a single location outside of their data center as quick as humanly possible, so that they could continue to do the things that they do. But Hannah, we were talking before, and you mentioned in some of our other chats that now people are looking closer at the specific workloads and what's the right infrastructure infrastructure. Maybe you can unpack that a little bit for us.
Sure. Yeah. Sorry. We right at that time. We continue to hear more about that and really focus on having a workload aware infrastructure. So, we continue. We've been talking about this for a long time, and now I think people are really embracing it and taking the opportunity as well as they have to reevaluate budgets and post-COVID world. What are we going to do? How do we reinvest smartly? And so we're not going to stop investing in technology altogether, but how do we maximize that? And so we've continued to see that approach even with our partnerships. So as we talk with VMware and co-sell with VMware or Dell through those partnership relationships, really going through an assessment phase and walking through that as a way to get to the right end result of a strategic multi-cloud hybrid cloud approach.
Yeah. And so really when we talk about hybrid cloud, let's put a little definition around that. Of course, what we're meaning both public cloud and private cloud. We're meaning, of course, the modern AWS, Azure, Google from a public cloud point of view. But when we think about private cloud, we're talking about let's not even worry about necessarily where that cloud might be running, but it is that dedicated infrastructure with some automation built into it and around it. That's what gives it its cloud moniker and making it available. But Adriana, we were talking before. I mean, look at these stats. We see the public cloud percentage staying the same, but we see private cloud actually growing. Reminds me of the old phrase, everybody used to say in the late teens, the private cloud is dead. Well, I'll go back to the private cloud is dead. Long live the private cloud. It's here forever.
I know. It reminds me of too when I was younger, and my mom would always say when I was wearing like the latest trend, she's like, hold on to that because it's going to come back around again. And I think that this is more, we saw this shift of so many different organizations running to and embracing hyperscalers and a cloud native approach. And many organizations really went all in. And there is absolutely a place for multi-cloud in terms of needing multiple hyperscalers. And there is a place for new applications that are going to have strong elasticity to be the right home, to Hannah's point about being more workload aware, that it is in public cloud. But what we've also found is many people thought that their applications were going to have more movement, and they didn't. And so in the long run, that security and the compliance and the overall investment and total cost of ownership of their landscape more and more is starting to make sense to remain in private cloud. And just because you leverage private cloud doesn't mean that you don't get the very similar features of public cloud, and we're able to offer that through our Rackspace offerings, and you still get that ability to burst when you need to. It's giving more of the best of both worlds now, where you can believe now that you can still have a modern application there, which I think a couple of years ago people did not see it that way. So they were like, if I want to modernize, I have to be with the hyperscaler. And that's just not the case anymore. I think there's an opportunity for both to really coexist successfully.
Well, and Hannah, looking after Dell and VMware partnership, helping to shepherd along some of the products and offerings at a company like Rackspace, which is known for our private cloud offerings. What are some of the workloads or use cases where private cloud really shines that's causing it to grow?
Yeah, I mean, we see this in the research a bit too, going where the data is, which is at the edge. So you see that growing. There's a need there. We are seeing it more in, if you have stable kind of static workloads, that you're going to be almost at max capacity. Those kind of workloads, you're going to run them consistently. Those are great fits. Sovereign data needs. We see use cases in that space. Healthcare, a lot of use cases around healthcare. And then don't even get me started on the AI stuff and all the use cases that could fall within the AI piece. Government sector, somebody commented.
Yeah, great question there about that. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Your question's coming, by the way.
I know.
Yes. So, I mean, to that point, Rackspace has had Rackspace Government Solutions, or RGS, for US based, and then we have our UK sovereign solutions for those. And then you get into Sadaya, Saudi Arabia, different regions where we're creating these sovereign platforms that really meet the need of that specific government compliance requirement.
That's right. That's right. Well, and you mentioned just a minute ago. Where's that slide? There we go. Pop that up for a second, Daniel. Check that. In fact, let's go full on it. So when we look at IT infrastructure over the next 12 months, we see edge computing growing at a pretty healthy clip. We see the private cloud growing. Mainframe, curious enough, is shrinking. And on-premises data center shrinking because, and this is sort of a Jeffism, by the way, and that is that if we look back at the main lessons that people learned in the computing world from COVID, is that, first of all, that people, that I mentioned this before, they pushed out their all their workloads just to get them, as I mentioned before, into a location where they could have access to them. But what I think the overriding message is from COVID is that nobody in their right mind, unless it's your professional job, like a Rackspace, like an AWS, like an Azure, should be running a data center. No, I mean, it's just really challenging in 2023, heading into 2024, for a variety of reasons, despite the fact that if it's not your core competency, why on earth are you actually running it? But let's talk edge for a second. Hannah, back to you. What are some workloads or things that are happening at the edge? Because edge is one of those words that we used to say was a buzzword. Now it's actually being used in reality.
It's a thing. I mean, I think in the manufacturing sector, that's one of the first, but there's all of them. I mean, in almost any retail, almost any vertical you could go to, manufacturing. I spent years before my tech career, I was in the retail space. All kinds of edge needed. Think about when you walk into, a grocery store that might be relevant in your space, or a Target or Walmart, and all of the data being collected in store as you go through and you check out with your device. I mean, just massive amounts of data being gathered at the edge, needing to be processed, and then stored somewhere, or to some extent. So just the challenges there that we're seeing. I mean, you kind of see it across the vertical landscape. Healthcare is another one. All of the medical devices in hospitals. You think about imaging at the hospital, that needs to be stored locally, and then all of that has to be stored for 7, sometimes unlimited number of years. So
yeah,
just a few examples.
Just a few examples. Now, Adriana, we can talk about where these things go from a location point of view over and over, but the reality is that, especially as we see in the research, that a lot of the same problems, regardless of location, still exist. Maybe you can unpack a little bit of this.
Sure. Look, this is a hard thing to do. This is not easy work. And even for us, and this is part of our core competency, there's always opportunities to learn. And so integrating all of the data, if we think about some of these use cases, as we see more M&A, mergers and acquisitions, happening between corporations, think about those are companies coming together. That's their data coming together, and making that integration happen in a seamless way. Like, that's another complex layer and challenge to this. As more governments start instituting newer flavors of sovereign type requirements, that's forcing organizations to think about how they operate. Look, this is not easy work. And more you're seeing organizations of all different sizes start looking to partners and a partner ecosystem to help accomplish this.
Yeah. And it's not the only dynamic that's driving change either, is it? I mean, when we look at, we actually asked some interesting questions around sustainability and how much pressure is the IT function facing in support of the organization's sustainability? 72%, really, when we look at it from either significant to strong pressure, sustainability is a thing.
Yeah, it is a thing. And I was surprised to see it this high at this point. To be honest, like we see it come up, and again, we work with with partners, like if we think about Dell and VMware and the commitments that they've made to sustainability, this is very much about thinking about the company that you keep, and you can't do it alone. And this data just only shows more and more how relevant that's becoming into the core of these organizations, and also how they view that IT and that department within their organization is one of the biggest levers to make an impact for positive change. So that's pretty exciting to see all of that come around. And with Srini Kaushik, our CTO's appointment now to President of Technology and Sustainability, like you will continue. Like, it's a great opportunity because we're getting to help build a stronger ecosystem with our partners like Dell and VMware in this area that is of relevant and critical need.
Yeah. And so, Hannah, as we come to the end of our time and you come to a point where you need to go get on a flight again, it was mentioned before that AI fits into all of this as well. And a lot of us, especially with a lot of the announcements lately, think AI being something relegated to the public cloud. But maybe just in closing, chat real quick about the role of private cloud and AI and machine learning models and such.
Sure. There's lots of people way more technical than I, but what I'm hearing more and more from customers that we're talking to is, one, we're starting to see people who went out and made a quick purchase because they knew they needed to, and then trying to figure out how to manage day two and really optimize that, and what are they actually going to do with what they've purchased. So you see some of that. You also see a lot of people who aren't sure where to go. That's where our fair offerings come into play to really help people progress along the journey. And then Rackspace has chosen to partner with Dell around validated designs. And so you will see us continue to evolve more and more to give, whether it's sovereign requirements or people concerned about how the data is being used and trained and all of that, give them a safe place to do that. So you will continue to see more and more around that, and just the space that it plays. You see a big use case in life sciences, as well as hyperscalers are starting to compete with some of those people. There's some concern out there around that competition and where they can put their data to safely store it and develop.
Yeah. All right. So before I let you guys go, we started our chat talking about women in technology. I get a lot of communications back from folks saying, hey, this was great. I want to take this back and show my 10, 11, 12-year-old daughter this, just so that he can see some of the opportunities that exist. And so what I love to ask is a question to each of you, and I'll start with you, Adriana, is what advice would you have for that 12-year-old girl? Or maybe if you were speaking to 12-year-old Adriana, what would you say?
Number one, wear sunscreen. Number two, stretch. that is my wishes, everyone. And number three, more on a work related note, is stay curious. Speak up, ask questions, delve into what interests you. At that time, there's so much in front of you, so seize and eat all of it up.
Awesome. Hannah, what advice would you have?
Mine aren't as funny as Adriana's, but I would say listen to your parents. They actually are older and do have wisdom. And then I would also say, find along that vein, be humble and find when you're young, you start to think you know a lot, but be willing to be humble and find those mentors and people who can help you along the way, and listen to them. Shoot, they know a lot, and they still do. I still greatly appreciate the value of mentorship in my life.
Well, ladies, both of you, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy work and travel day to be a part of our conversation here today. I hope you have a great rest of the day and, of course, a great holiday season.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone.
Thanks
all
all.
right. Well, folks, this is coming up on the end of our show here. If you want to learn more about what we're doing over here at Rackspace in our Thought Leadership Program, just head over to rackspace.com/solve. You know what you're going to find there? I'm going to take this down for a second so we can bring the QR code up as well, but also that research that we've been discussing during our chat here today. So feel free to go out and check that research out. There's so much more that we didn't unpack in this conversation that's in there. It will arm you and get you ready for 2024. Folks, we're back next week, and this will be the last one of the year. We're going to do a sum up of everything that we've talked about this year. some lessons learned. I'm going to have a gift guide. If you have a tech person in your world and maybe you're not the most technical, well, I've got some ideas for you. And they're great ideas to send. Some stuff that's a little cheaper and some stuff that's a little more expensive. But it'll be a fun time. We may not even keep it to our normal 30 minutes. I may just ramble for as long as I doggone well feel like it. All right, folks, I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope you really enjoyed Hannah and Adriana. They are amazing women doing some incredible work over here at Rackspace. Go scan that QR code and read that research. And I'll see you next week. My name is Jeff DeVerter for Rackspace Technology here at Cloud Talk Live.